right? So we were talking about Robert Dahl, right? Robert Dahl and his criticisms on the claims of status of public administration, right? So, right, so Robert Dahl in his book, The Science of Public Administration, Three Problems, right? In his book, Science of Public Administration, Three Problems. He has highlighted three important problems that acted as, right, shortcomings in the claims of status of science to public administration. So, what are these three problems? One is, I'm giving in a simple format, and for example, you can use this kind of format. One is impossibility of excluding normative considerations in theory and practice of public administration. That is, one is impossibility of excluding normative considerations in public administration. Right. Second shortcoming is impossibility of predicting human behavior, uncertainty over human behavior. Impossibility of predicting human behavior. This is second one. And third one is lack of cross-cultural application of principles of public administration. సార్ ఎంతసేపు అవుతుంది? 1.5 గంట సేపు క్లాస్ ఉంటుంది.
ఉంటే లేట్ అంటే వెళ్ళిపోమన్నారు. తర్వాత మీతో ఫోన్ కూడా మాట్లాడుతుంది. సరే, క్లాస్ గంట అయిందంటే ఓకేనా సార్?
Lack of cross-cultural application. Lack of cross-cultural application of principles. Lack of cross-cultural application of principles. All right. So these are the three shortcomings. That were highlighted by Robert Dahl. So one is about normative consideration, second one is about predicting of human behavior, and third one is application of principles, that is cross-cultural application of principles of public administration. All right. So now let us talk about these things in detail. So what do you mean by what called normative considerations in public administration, whether it is possible to exclude or not. So it is about understanding normative considerations. So before going to this topic, I want to ask one question: whether public administration is value free or value oriented. Question is whether public administration is value free or value oriented. So what is public administration? Whether it is value free or value oriented?
Value oriented.
What about others? Anu, what about you?
Value oriented is sir.
Okay. Shamala, after a long time. All right. So definitely we can say that public administration is value oriented. So now we are convinced that it is value oriented. What do you mean by value orientedness? What do you mean by value orientedness? And what are the values, right, of public administration? What do you mean by value orientedness? What are the values?
Preferred outcomes,
Ah,
welfare,
preferred outcomes. So public administration always, right? It is outcome oriented. It has its own preferred outcomes. It has its own preferred outcomes. All right. So what are the preferred outcomes of public administration? I'll give the answer. Here, public administration is seen as a machine. It is an institution that always promotes welfare. Welfare is one preferred outcome. Second one is, right, protecting the interest of weaker sections. Right, always identifying the needs and demands. The needs and demands of societies, identifying these needs and demands of societies, and helping the political executive, helping the politics in articulating these needs and demands as policies. That is, it has a role in policy making. It has a role in policy making. Not only this, its values lies in promoting efficiency. And economy, also effectiveness. So these are preferred outcomes of public administration. Now, can we exclude these preferred outcomes, or can we exclude value orientedness from public administration? If it is excluded, then what happens? Can we exclude the value orientations in public administration?
no,
No. Never it is possible to exclude this value orientedness. That means, so value normative considerations are nothing but value orientedness. Normativism is always related with value orientedness. Normativism, it is always concerned with the preferred outcomes. So never it is possible. Sorry. Never it is possible to exclude these normative considerations. So public administration is always seen as a moral act. Public administrators are always seen as a moral agents. Public administration is moral act, and public administrators are moral agents. Do you have any doubt in this? No doubt. Right? Definitely, there should not be any doubt. So public administration is a value oriented. It has its own normative considerations which cannot be excluded. So as long as there is a discipline of public administration, as long as there is public administration, so it is always embedded with this value orientedness, welfare, interest, the publicness of public administration. The publicness of public administration itself adds value orientation to public administration. Now, if you take a science, science is a one which is always value neutral, because in science only means are given in importance. Right? Never importance is given to end outcomes. Never importance is given to preferred outcomes. It is only means. It is only instrumentality of actions. It is only means, it is only instrumentality of actions which are given importance in science. In science, it is only instrumentality of actions. It is the means. So that means science is essentially a value free. Science is essentially a value free. So there is no place for values in science. Values, value orientedness. It is only seen in those disciplines which work for societies, which are a backbone of societies. But for science, right, there is no importance for values. There is no importance for preferred outcomes. It is only the means which are given importance. Now, whether because of this reason, all right, because of what you call presence of values in public administration, as public administration is not value free, can we call public administration as a science? So as long as there are normative considerations, as long as there are normative considerations in public administration, whether public administration can claim the status of science?
No, sir.
No,
sir.
no. As long as normative considerations are present, all right, there is no possibility of what you call claiming the status of science. So this was the first problem that was highlighted by Robert Dahl. So Robert Dahl says that public administration cannot claim the status of science until it excludes normative considerations from it. Until it excludes normative considerations from it. Am I clear?
Sir.
This is first hindrance. Second hindrance is, right, principles of organization. So if you take these principles, these are the principles. The second problem is with the principles. Second problem is with the principles. Right, if you take these principles, the principles are based upon mechanistic understanding of organizations. They are based upon mechanistic understanding. Mechanistic understanding of organization. That is, without giving importance to, right, the social and psychological behavior of individuals. So, without understanding or without giving importance to socio-psychological understanding of individuals. Simply by taking it as granted that every individual in the organization has a specific behavior, a predefined behavior. So there is another assumption that every individual within the organization, right, has a predefined behavior. That is, every individual will behave in the same manner. It is that is, the individual's behavior is predictable. A predictable individual's behavior. So it is these assumptions. It is based upon these assumptions. The principles were followed or the principles were designed. But in reality, whether it is possible to predict a human behavior, in reality, in any organization, you take any kind of settings, any kind of organizational settings, let it be family, a church, or a society, or an NGO, a charity, or a private organization, a business firm. You take any kind of organization, whether it is really possible to predict a human behavior.
No, sir.
Don't think about all this. Even our parents. Think about our parents. So if you take family as an organizational setting, in our organization, we don't know. Sometimes even it is not possible for us to predict the behavior of our parents, our own parents. Sometimes it is not that possible. We don't know how they think, how they act. These are our real-time experiences. These are our real-time experiences. Now, when you see this, when you see our real-time experiences, we can definitely say that it is not possible. It is not possible to predict human behavior. All right. Say, I'll give one simple example. We have system of rules in the organization. We have system of rules. We have system of rules in the organization. In reality, do we expect every individual for every time, always, to follow the rules? Whether an individual should really follow all the rules every time?
No, sir.
No. It is we can't say, we can't predict to what extent these rules are preferred, to what extent they are followed. Right? And even sometimes it is difficult to predict the outcomes of following the rules. Even when the rules are followed, right? And every rule has a specific predefined behavior. But in reality, we don't see that predefined behavior. In real time, we don't see the predefined behavior. All right. So this is the basic things. These are the basic things. Am I clear? Am I clear to you on this point?
Yes, sir.
So it is that is Robert Dahl. Robert Dahl has said that. Robert Dahl has highlighted that it is impossible. It is impossible to predict human behavior. And as long as it is impossible to predict human behavior, we cannot design a principles that can be rightly applied in the organizations. That can be rightly applied in the public administration. So we can apply only those principles in public administration. We can apply only those principles which can really predict human behavior in the administrative settings, in the organizational settings. So, but in reality, this is not possible. So as long as these principles are not possible, as long as it is not possible to predict human behavior, right? Public administration cannot claim the science, the status of science. If you take science, what is the basic character of a science? Science is a discipline, right? Where using of a principle will determine the preferred or predefined outcomes. The principle itself, following a principle itself will determine the nature of outcomes. The outcome is clearly defined when the principle is being put to use. But this is not in the case of public administration. Though we use the principles, but it is not possible to define the outcomes because these principles are brought by limited understanding of organizations, right? By having a mechanical understanding of organizations. So, all right. So these principles cannot bring the status of science to public administration. So this was the second criticism given by Robert Dahl. All right. So Robert Dahl has said that as long as human behavior is predictable or predicted, all right, the public administration cannot claim the status of science. Okay. The next problem. The third problem that was highlighted by Robert Dahl is lack of cross-cultural applicability. Lack of cross-cultural applicability of principles. All right. Lack of cross-cultural applicability. All right. So what do you mean by cross-cultural applicability? So can you give the answers? Some of you, any one of you. What do you mean by cross-cultural application of principles? What do you mean by it? Yeah, Sharon, you are saying something.
Cultural differences like Western principles cannot be applied to the Indian culture as well.
So cross-cultural means, right? Cross-national culture determines a nation. Alright? Cross-national application of principles. That is, principles of public administration that are determined by using one condition, one country's settings, cannot be applied in other countries. We all know that. Public administration as a discipline. Public administration as a discipline, it got emerged in America. The entire theory of public administration got emerged in America. Not only America, but even the experiences, the industrial experiences of European countries. Right? So it is this industrial experience of these countries which has influenced the theory of public administration, the principles of public administration. Alright, to take the theory, the best example is separation. Wilson has advocated separation. Now, based upon what? Based upon the requirements of America, based upon the conditions of America, based upon the kind of reforms that were brought out in America or initiated in America. It is these experiences which has made Wilson to prescribe separation. Even you take Taylor scientific management theory, or whatever the theory or the principles may be, right? Theory and principles. Theory and principles, right? They were brought based upon the American and the European conditions. American and European conditions. Now, this theory and principles have equal applicability in non-European countries or Afro-Asian nations. So, can this theory and principles be equally applied in Afro-Asian countries? Will they get same kind of results? So, one is equal applicability and getting of same results. Whether it is possible, what do you say? Whether it is possible of having.
Sir.
So why it is not possible? Why it is no?
Because of the developing situation of the countries.
Because
The
of
European-
changes in the conditions. Yes, you're right.
Sir,
It is,
economic condition.
it is because of differences in socio-economic, political, bureaucratic conditions of these nations. They are totally different from the Western countries, from the Western part of world. So how a theory or a principle that is developed in one part of the world can have an equal applicability in other part of the world? There can be applicability, but that applicability requires modifications in the theory. Without modifying a theory, it is not possible to apply. Any application requires modifications. All right. So we cannot apply the theory or principles of public administration based upon the American conditions or European conditions as it is in the third world countries, in the Afro-Asian countries. It requires changes. So as long as these changes are brought out, as long as this narrowness in public administration is removed, public administration cannot claim the status of science, because science is a discipline which has a universal applicability. So when we call it as science, right? Science has universal applicability. Now, what is the status of principles of public administration? Do they have a universal applicability? Do they have universal applicability? Definitely no. So when there is no universal applicability of principles or theory, public administration cannot claim the status of a science. Am I clear? Am I clear on this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. So a bad public administration cannot claim the status of science because of these reasons. Now, definitely we can conclude that public administration is not a science. It is in the process. It is in the process of getting the status of a science. So we are, the scholars are working on it, right? Rigorous research is being undertaken to bring out the principles of universal applicability. As long as these principles, so as long as these shortcomings are overcome, as long as these shortcomings are overcome, public administration cannot claim the status of a science. All right? So this is what. Now, so we have one topic in the syllabus, that is whether public administration is a science or an art. What is the end of this debate? Whether public administration, so we have seen the criticisms of Robert Dahl, Simon, Elton Mayo, right? The perspectives brought by C.A. Bernard. So we have seen all these things. After seeing these, what is your conclusion? Whether public administration is a science or an art? So how do you put an end to this debate? Or what is an end to this debate? Can anyone in the class? What is the end to this debate? So should we call it as science?
No, sir.
Definitely not. Definitely it is not a science. So there is a midway of coming out of this conclusion. This we can call it as a social science. Simply let us call this as a social science. Let us check these as a social science. Let us call this as a social science. All right. So this is how we can conclude. So take down a question. Take down a question on this. Explain. Explain the criticisms. Explain the criticisms. Criticisms on the scientific status of public administration. Explain the criticisms on the scientific status of public administration given by Robert Dahl. Given by Robert Dahl. Given by Robert Dahl. All right. Have you noted the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is about, so we have seen how the fundamental pillars of public administration, were challenged. So because of this challenge, we see public administration losing its identity, loss of identity. So by 1948, public administration as an academic discipline, it lost its identity. So loss of identity. That is the reason why the time from the period from 1948 to 1971, the period from 1948 to 1971, it is regarded as an era of, that is, it is regarded as a period of identity loss, that is crisis of identity. It is regarded as crisis of identity, that is loss of identity. So because of this challenge, right, public administration has lost its academic identity. Some of the scholars, they have identified public administration with political science. Some of them have moved to the newly emerged discipline of management. So, particularly from 1948 to 1956. From 1948 to 1956, public administration, the scholars of public administration, they were seen within political science, that is public administration as political science. Some of the scholars of public administration, they have joined political science. And from 1956 to 1971, and then onwards, 56 to 71 and then onwards, public administration was identified with management. It is identified with management. So PubAd as political science, PubAd as management. And even if you take the words like, statements like a theory of public administration in our times, a theory of politics also. Once again, I'm repeating, a theory of public administration in our times, a theory of politics also. That means what? There is no difference made between the theory of PubAd and theory of political science. It was given by John Gause. So John Gause has given this statement. So according to John Gause, there is no difference between public administration and political science. All right. And even according to Wallace Seyra, all right, according to Seyra, he says that a problems of public administration is also a problem of political science. A problem of public administration is a problem within political science. That means if you take these statements, definitely they can they connote, they show a meaning that public administration, right, as a discipline lost its identity and joined within political science, and it is within political science. So public administration is seen as a part of political science. All right. So this shows the status of public administration. All right. So this is what the status. That is, ultimately, public administration has become a part within political science, and sometimes some of scholars, they have seen themselves within management. And it was during this time we see emergence of new disciplines. A new scholar, what you call sub-disciplines got emerged. By this time, we see emergence of new sub-disciplines. All right, new school of thought, new theories getting developed. Say, for example, new school of thought, that is new human relations theory. All right, a new human relations theory got developed. If you take the major theories includes the theories of Maslow, Abraham Maslow, McGregor, Herzberg, Warren Bennis, Argyris, Francis Likert, So they brought. Remember, this class will get ended within 1 minute, and after end of the class, use the same link to join the class. So if class gets disconnected after 1 minute, do use the same link. Okay. So this is a new school of thought. A new school of thought got emerged. So we will read them. So they are an important part of our syllabus. Each of them are a part of our syllabus. Maslow's need hierarchy model, McGregor's theory X, theory Y, motivation hygiene theory of Herzberg. So we'll read everyone. But here, so this new theories got emerged during the times of identity crisis. It was during this crisis stage. It was in this period of crisis we see emergence of a new things, a new theory. This is one. Next one. It was during